And we're live. Welcome to Scum and Villainy. Ambition. This is Mr. Sean Anakins, also known as Ultra Lazuli, coming at you with more tabletop role-playing goodness. Go ahead and pull that up there for you. As you may see, we have a little bit of a surprise in store for y'all, so I hope you enjoy that. We're going to be continuing the job that we left from before. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and get to our players here. Thunder, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone what you've been up to, what you've been getting into, what kind of troubles plague you, that sort of thing.
Hi, my name's Thunder. I've been doing all right, and what has been plaguing me so far is in fact a plague, as apt as that is. However, that is currently going away, and I am perfectly fit to be talking for the next 4 hours. All right.
Well, glad to hear that. Hopefully you get better soon. I still think it's allergies, but we'll see what happens.
I am also very aware it's allergies. It's just they won't go away.
Well, that's the thing about allergies. There's always more pollen. All right, so let's go ahead and get on to our friend Aaron, who plays Needles.
I'm Erin Okura. I play Audrey Clarity or Needles, and last night I made a really good Thai chicken curry. That's the only thing that I could think of that's going on with my life.
Hey, fine dining is its own reward.
Yep. I appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well then in that case, Gizmo, Mad Titan Kronos, or Kronson, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Having a good life, I think. I've spent the last couple days trying to build up my next couple weeks of plot hooks for my own stream. Um, Other than that, I've been working on a cosplay for Roadhog.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
How's
Gonna
it coming
be
along?
Well, I have all of the 3D printer files prepared, and I just need to get them 3D printed, which means I need to get a quote from one of my dad's coworkers who actually has a 3D printer. And then I'm currently trying to find a decently cheap black vest. It's going to be kind of an altered Roadhog, where it's going to be recognizable as Roadhog, but it's going to be kind of my own inspiration too.
All right then, cool. You know, with all the advents in technology with 3D printing, it's only going to be a matter of time before Westworld becomes a thing.
Slightly terrifying.
A little bit, a little bit. I never finished that series. I don't know. I just couldn't get through it. It seemed too pretentious. I don't know. Maybe not good enough acting. I'll figure it out later. But for now, the surprise that we have is an entirely new character, an entirely new player. Ben, why don't you go ahead and just report on what's been going on and who you'll be playing. Just a brief description.
Yeah, so I'm Ben Bronte, and I'm joining the campaign as a new character. You want me to introduce the character already, even though he hasn't popped up in-game? All right. Serious. His name is Rusty. He's pretty young, pretty thin, pretty pale, pretty ginger. Kind of thinking Gallagher from Shameless. It's my inspiration. So
All right.
Picture that when you hear Rusty.
Perfect, perfect. All right, well, we'll figure out what's going on with Rusty and who Rusty is here shortly. Let's go ahead and get into a recap. So, who wants to earn a free XP point for recapping real quick?
Everything blew up, actually, this time. So, we had a bit of a scuffle on the Sacred Flame, what's it called? Ship.
The Forsaken.
Forsaken. Which didn't go too well. Bon is unconscious, and Audra is not too far behind. We're on a tight spot here. However, uh, we did manage to have somebody uh, get away. Gizmo and our uh, sort of quarry, the android that we were after, managed to make their escape and, with some luck, get in a rather favorable position. As soon as Gizmo got to a console, he was able to work his magic, uh, turn the security system against the crew, and set up a bit of an ultimatum: self-destruction of everybody on board the ship, or you could just give us the crew, and then we could all walk free, and nobody has to die. Unfortunately, that wasn't the actual deal. The actual deal was more so give us the crew, and you'll know when you die. It'll be in about 5 seconds. As soon as they decided that self-destruction was not a good alternative to just letting them go with the android, they brought over Bon and Aja into the ship, and as soon as that happened, they uh, had Gizmo go over to a console and turn the self-destruct off, or at least had him attempt to. At which point he said, "Screw that!" Hopped on board the ship, kicked it off, and we boosted out of there. Whilst the rest of them probably just started crying and/or praying to their non-existent god as their ship turned into 1,000 tiny pieces. By itself, of course.
Sounds about right.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe our next point of action would be finding our way back to place. I need to get these names correct. Finding our way back to the Maelstrom, or their hideout. The
Cove.
The Cove, yes. The Pirate's Cove. Now I get it. All right.
Indeed.
Yeah, finding our way back to the Cove to turn in the robot, who will hopefully be able to pay us, and will hopefully also be able to find us somewhere to recuperate. I think we're going to be having some downtime this session, and by God, our characters need it. After that mess. All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the recap there. A lot of chaos ensued. Needles almost died. Gizmo almost died. Riot is pretty close to dying, but luckily he's aboard. Needles is aboard, and she can work on him a bit. Yeah, so go ahead and take 1 pip of XP and put it anywhere you please.
Playbook. All right.
So, we're going to be going ahead and introducing Rusty just in the course of play here. But to set the scene, we catch like a recap of the tail end of last episode, and the recap ends with the Liberated just blasting away and going towards an FTL gate. And boosting through the gate a little bit closer to the southeast the galactic southeast end of the Rin system. And there, we fade to black and come back up with the picture of the Liberated looking at the front of it. Is there anything you guys want to do during the FTL jump, or want to say to each other, that sort of thing?
I want to do some doctoring. I think some doctoring is in order.
Okay. Is that going to be on Riot?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and start on that doctor roll. So, just as before, you can use a gambit if you have one. I don't remember if you guys do. You can, of course, push yourself if you have any stress left. And you can try and take a devil's bargain.
But gambits for on mission only.
You guys are still on mission. This isn't
Yeah.
downtime.
Fair enough. All right.
I'm just gonna see what I can do. with what I've got.
Okay. Cronson could help you here. Gizmo could help you if he's not like preoccupied with repairing the ship or cursing himself or inspecting Tishur, the Urbot that they rescued. And that's if he actually knows anything about doctoring and has the stress available for it.
I know nothing about doctoring. I know a lot of things about hacking and rigging, but nothing about doctoring.
All right. Well, I think you are on your own, Audra.
Okay, what's my position?
Your position is going to be. Your position is going to be pretty controlled here. You're on your ship. You're in FTL. There are some things that can go wrong here, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as it could be. Your effect is going to be. Your effect is going to be probably limited unless you can think of something that would give you a greater effect.
No, that makes sense because I have less effect because I'm also injured.
Hmm.
And I lost my med kit. I mean, we have a med bay, but lost my fine med kit.
Yeah, you did.
Sure miss that fine med kit a lot.
Yep, indeed.
Alright.
Alright, let's get back to the roll here.
Huzzah.
Nice! A 6 and a 4. So taking the 6, obviously, since it's
Yep.
the highest result. And, alright. Let me take a
I
look.
hope this is a good sign.
Yeah, let me take a look at Riot here.
I'm very hurt.
You are very hurt.
Hmm.
Okay. I think what you managed to do, rather than removing the level 3 harm that he suffered from a plethora of blaster bolts riddling his body, I think instead of removing it, you're just going to move it down to a level 2 harm. So,
Okay.
Bon, you're still in a fuckload of pain. You still have a lot of holes in your body that need to heal, a lot of cauterization that the good doctor here has done her best to fix. But without advanced tools and stuff and lacking better supplies, I think the best she's going to be able to do is apply some ointment, bandage it up, reattach some things here and there. And you're going to be moving that down to level 2. So you are conscious, or you're not quite conscious, but you're not in danger of just like dying off and bleeding out.
Fair enough. Well, if I am still not conscious, I guess I just kind of lay there,
Okay.
as one does when they're not conscious.
All right. So that's happening. Karn, what are you up to?
Me, myself, and I attempting not to die. Karn's probably in the back of the ship, or wherever the engine room is, working on that. Sorry. Ooh, that hurt. Working on the,
A spark flies and hurts the player who's actually playing Karn Cronson.
I mean, heartburn, man.
Sorry, continue.
Alright, probably working on one of his projects, or attempting to fix himself more, or just trying not to die. Potentially talking with the Urbot. I think talking to the Urbot, now that I've talked through all that.
Sorry, guys. Tashur has found a seat on the cargo area of the Liberated and is just kind of looking about the ship, observing everything, and she observes you, I imagine, approaching her.
Alright, let's see what we're actually getting ourselves into now that I have a moment. And he's going to start pulling out various tools and whatnot.
Okay.
Different interfacing devices and such. And turns, looks, kind of stares for a second, goes, alright. Computer or myself? Which one works better? That's usually interface with organics fairly well. We'll go with the computer for now. I don't want to risk it. I'm still feeling sore. And he starts hooking her up to like a diagnostics computer.
Okay, let me ask you, what is your intention here? Is your intention just to check her out, find data or something? Are you trying to access her memory? What are you trying to do exactly?
Figure out exactly what we're getting into here. What she is capable of, what she knows, stuff like that.
Okay, so you're trying to just interface with her for now and see exactly, what kind of herbite you're dealing with, that sort of thing?
Yep.
Okay. So that sounds like a rig. So you're not entirely sure if there's any sort of access panel, and you're going to have to use some devices in order to do it. So why don't you go ahead and give me a rig. And I'm going to say that your position is controlled, and you have a standard effect. You actually would have less effect because of your injuries, though. So limited effect in that case. Alright, so 5. Okay. Okay. I think while you're looking for a port to open, she asks you what you're doing. You say something like, just trying to check you out. Like, what do you say when she asks, what are you doing?
Well, before I go and hand you over to the maelstrom, I'd like to know exactly what I'm giving them.
Was the contract not sufficient?
For me? No, not at all.
Very well. The only port that I know of, am aware of, is on the right side of my head. And you look, and you kind of like part some of her hair away, and she presses a button that you never would have found, and a small access port comes open. The port itself doesn't look like anything that you've ever seen before, and even as a ghost who probably works with artifacts and such, this doesn't look like it would interface well with anything you have. You get the impression, as you see a small circular opening, you get the impression that you could probably plug one of your devices in there. However, you get the impression that if you were to do so, you probably only have a few moments to sift through any data that she might have and to actually interface with her before that adapter, possibly the whole thing, fried. Not necessarily blew up, but was receiving too much data, or perhaps there was some sort of voltage fluctuation that was either too much or too little. It would essentially ruin it. However, you could save your tools and such, and in that case, You wouldn't burn anything out, but you wouldn't necessarily have any access to any of her information from your interfacing.
Okay.
I would say if you had more stress, well, I suppose either way you could still try and resist this consequence. You just have to get really lucky.
Or just do nothing and say, well, can't do that.
She closes the port and says,
Not deal with it.
yeah. She closes the port and says, I am sorry, but the data stores are locked behind several layers of encryption. I do not believe that anything that you have available would be able to properly interface.
Probably right on that one.
What is this ship's designation?
Not sure.
Are you
I
not a
just
crew
looked
member?
up myself. I've been a crew member for a day and a half. If that.
I see. Very well then. And she just kind of starts looking forward, not really looking at you or anything, just kind of almost as if it was an android in rest mode.
Khan is just gonna let it go for right now because he's just too tired.
Alright. So you're just going to bunk up?
Yep.
Okay. Because no one really said anything, I'm going to say that for whatever reason, Marcus is back on the wheel here.
Oh god.
I can pilot, sort of, a little bit.
Once you wake up, you can. That's not going to
Yeah,
be for a
fair
while. Okay. So he is going to... I'm actually going to make a fortune roll. I'm going to use Cronson's sheet here, so you feel more responsible about it. And he's going to get a couple of dice here. Marcus's... Oh, no, not Marcus. Marcus's piloting. Okay. So 4. Because of some of the damage that was sustained beforehand, Marcus is kind of taking it easy. Like, it's a clear space field. There's not really anything in the way of you guys. As you drop out of warp, there's a small kind of like Stargate warping of faces and stuff. You guys drop out of FTL and back into normal space, and Marcus starts leading the ship over towards the cove, a maelstrom-infested palace of sorts. Many different ships and such cobbled together. And there's a description for it here. As the camera pans over to the cove, we zoom in, we see quick bets taken on an open brawl between two captains over slights. Blue-white sparks of maintenance workers welding a new ship on. Fresh water misting over rows of hydroponics. A station-wide broadcast of the Banshee's latest conquest, both in the bedroom and out. Followed by cheers throughout the halls. Lastly, a spacer running a shell game, loudly barking for people to find the bolt. And as we pan back out, we see the liberated approaching. Marcus is at the helm, but you hear over the loudspeakers inside the ship. Hey, hey, we're here. Where are we going here? Anyways, what's going on? Does anybody answer back? Anybody wake up?
Karn is going to approach the bridge, I guess, after pulling himself out of bed.
Okay.
What are you on about?
That maelstrom place. We're here. What? Is someone going to tell me what we need to do? Otherwise, they're just going to shoot us down.
Oh, yes, totally. When they're the one who's asked for our help. Definitely what's going to happen here. Excuse me, assholes. Please lower your weapons as we have the shit you want.
To be clear, the Maelstrom were not the people asking for this to happen. They were just the people who had a very large and complicated place that Tushur could be buried.
Yeah, that's what I
or
thought.
at least hidden.
Yeah, this is where Tushur wanted to go. It's not where they wanted. Like, they didn't call for her. She called to bring her. She wanted us to bring her here. Like, we got a message from her directly.
Karn's out of it. His brain thinks best. Definitely, they asked for this.
I wish I was conscious. All right.
All right.
I had kind of hoped that Tushur and Khan would have had a conversation about where she wanted us to take her.
I was under the impression that we knew. I being Chris, not Karn.
Sure. I'll say Tushur comes down to the bridge. You hear a very slight as she walks. It sounds like she probably hasn't been oiled in some time, if that's even a thing that synthetics of her nature need. And she says, "Are we here?"
We're here. This is the Maelstrom. And as of right now, looks like they're gonna shoot us.
Okay. She looks at you, Needles, and then she just looks away, and then she looks over at Gizmo and says, "You appear to be the leader in charge currently. Would you allow me to interface with your ship?"
Sure.
Very well. She walks up to the console and right next to where Marcus is sitting, and he looks up at her and he's like, Whoa! When the hell did we get a pleasure bitch on board?"
Hey, you watch your mouth, or you'll be eating through a straw for a week.
I'll be chewing a straw? I do that already.
I smacked the back of Marcus's head.
Ow! What the hell, Doc?
I sack tap Marcus.
Oh, Jesus.
Be
Okay.
polite.
Give me a scrap. Controlled and standard. Jesus. All right. Yeah, you sack tap the fuck out of him. You just reach down. Do you like punch his balls, or do you just like pow?
No, it's a sack tap. I take the
All right.
back of my knuckle and wrap it against his balls.
All right. Yeah, he starts to get up out of the seat, looking at Needles, and then bam, that happens, and he says, "Oh, you little pig bastard!"
Karn kind of like.
And he
pulls him
doubles
down.
over onto the floor.
Oh, even better. Karn, as he's down on the floor, like crouches right over him and goes, "And what did we learn?"
Never trust a ghost. Oh.
You have a lot more to learn. And he just kind of like pats him on the cheek and stands up. All right. To share. Well, I suppose now that Needles is up, she'd like to interface with the ship. I told her it's okay. You should be fine.
Yeah, she's already like interfacing with the ship. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just explaining to her what's going on.
Well, since you've incapacitated our pilot,
We'll be fine, I'm sure.
yeah, any navigation that she can take control of would actually be appreciated.
He just needs to walk it off. Ain't that right, Marcus? Walk it off. Shake a leg.
Yeah, he tries to bring himself up and only really manages to double over the co-pilot seat, still groaning in pain.
I shouldn't have to doctor that.
Yeah, in the meantime, Tushur has already put her hands directly on the console, and you guys see little green cybernetic lines forming on the surface of the console. You see a bajillion screens come up and then pass, and then come up and then pass, almost as if it was the Flash reading a book. And as we kind of like pan the camera to her face through the viewport, the windshield, as it were, of the ship, we see her eyes just changing all these different colors and all these things coming up, and her eyes just hyperspeed running through them. And she says, "All done. We are now a transport belonging to the Maelstrom. Their sensors will pick up that we have a large beryllium shipment."
Huh.
Are you sure you want us to hide you? Because, like, that could be really useful to have on board. You know, if you wanted to stay on board.
She pulls her hand away from the console and looks at you, Needles, and she says, in a very, like, with a deadpan expression on her face, "The knowledge I contain is far too dangerous for any one person or organization to obtain. Being placed here will make certain that I am not found. I have also located a suitable place where I may be placed."
Fair enough.
And Gizmo, as you kind of look over the console, you note that the autonav hasn't been set, but a destination has been marked on one of the newer ships that's been attached to the flotilla here.
Mm.
And it's a tiny little dot.
Where's that?
It appears to be a stasis cocoon, one of the old technologies, after my time, but before yours.
Wonderful.
Without the correct passcodes, it would be very difficult to open.
Do you have the correct passcodes?
Could you find the correct passcodes?
I may be able to, if we are to get within range.
Well, let's get you within range then. Marcus, do you need an ice pack?
Oh, he's a big boy.
I wish I had an ice hammer just to pick this asshole's brain apart.
Boy,
Then it'd just
gonna
leak
need a
out,
lot
wouldn't
more.
you, little asshole?
This is not productive.
Oh no, I'm having great fun.
The keyword was productive.
Fun's productive. After the hellhole I just
produces
pulled you
laughs.
from, I think I'm allowed a little bit of venting.
I think your venting was destroying that ship, maybe.
No, that was consequences for them fucking with me.
Countless lives were lost.
Countless hegemony lives were lost. They're
I'll
all
probably
assholes
count 'em.
anyway.
Well, if you
Oh, go ahead.
could try and keep the blowing off steam to a minimum for the moment until we can finish up with this mission, that would be my preference, if you wouldn't mind.
Oh,
Please.
fair enough. I can do that. On my honor.
He looks over the Marcus looks over the console and rubs the back of his head a little bit, and he says, "They turned off their weapons. If we're gonna go, now's good." Are we going or what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now is definitely when we want to go. Can you go to the spot that she's marked?
It'll take me a while. Some of the damage that was done took out a couple of the thrusters we need. I can't go too fast or else we'll go off course.
That's okay. Slow and steady.
Alright, yeah. He gets slowly back into the primary pilot's seat and looks cautiously at Gizmo. And he eventually starts rolling along. Is there anything you guys want to do in the meantime, or do you guys want to fast forward to the stasis cocoon?
Is there anything I can do to get Barn up?
I feel like this might be an information roll, but I think for the sake of brevity, you know that there are certain chemicals that will wake any human up, even a body-modded one, like Bon. Adrenaline type shots and things that imitate the similar effects. None of them are great for the human body, especially if imbibed multiple times in a day or injected multiple times in a day. But you might be able to get them up once without any serious side effects.
Okay. Well, I think I want to do that. I think that he'd want to be alert.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and give me a doctor to prepare the formula and inject it properly.
Okay. Position?
What were you going to say, Cronson?
I just said you can do it.
Position is going to be controlled. Effect would normally be standard. With your injury, it's going to be a limited.
Okay.
You get the impression that without your fine med kit or some of the supplies that you used in the battle with the Forsaken, you get the impression that he'd probably only be awake for maybe a couple hours.
Okay.
But yeah, you can go ahead.
It's a 4.
It's a 4. Okay, so partial success here. Okay. I think. Hmm. Okay. I think you had uh, Marcus's inhaler in the med bay,
Yeah.
and a lot of the chemicals that are in that particular drug. Um, Someone's echoing here. Let me take a look. I think it might have been Ben. Okay, thanks.
No, I think it was Cronson.
Was it Cronson?
Was I echoing? My bad.
Great
By the way,
balls
it
of
is
fire.
Cronson.
Yeah, I think it is Cronson. Maybe put yourself on push to talk for now. Thanks, buddy. Anyways, the chemicals that are in this inhaler, this drug, um, which you haven't been able to properly identify, some of them would definitely be good to use for this this wake-up drug, this shot of artificial adrenaline. You'd be able to use some of those and complete the serum and inject it with them, no problem. But there might be side effects for Riot in the future. And what I would do is, if you wanted to go that route, Riot, I'd have you make a fortune roll with 2 dice. And if you succeeded, then you don't suffer any effects.
Barring any input from Thunder, I think I'm going to do that.
Okay. Alright, well, I'm not hearing anything coming from him, so you go ahead and filter out some of the elements, mix them together, and in about like 10-20 minutes, you have an artificial adrenaline shot. And you pump it into his neck through a simple, almost hypo spray kind of device. And Riot, you wake up. You feel a little bit better, but you still kind of feel like shit. You're covered in bandages, a lot of your armor is taken off, and you're in the med bay.
Okay. So, yeah. I just I immediately clutched the sides of the bed and squeeze on as hard as I can. I look up into space, and I start breathing rather heavily after that. I just kind of look around. I see you, Aja, and I calm down a little bit, but I am still clutching the bed, and I ask you, where are they?
Well, I'm assuming that they you're talking about, well, they're all dead?
Okay. That helps. Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm alright. How are you feeling?
Eh. Could be better.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Thanks.
I've got I haven't got all of my equipment. Not all of my equipment made it out with me, so doing my best to patch you up, buddy, but I'm guessing you're probably not feeling the best.
Bond will attempt to sit up and say, we restock at the cove.
Speaking of the cove, we're actually currently navigating it.
Hmm. Birds. Hmm. Good. We, all made it out?
Yes.
Good. I think Bond just kind of falls back on the medical bed and says, I'll be out in a minute or so. If you need me, call. Or if you don't, I will come anyways.
Audra just pats his shoulder gently and leaves the med bay.
Okay. Bon, you feel awake and alive more so than you have in a while. I don't know. Are you the type of person who takes a lot of adrenaline shots or drugs like combat enhancers, stimulants?
I don't think so. I think that's uh, partially why there are some of the body mods. Is just to make it so he doesn't have to break himself to get that enhanced ability. It just kind of comes with the territory. Uh,
Okay.
he would rather be disfigured but a bit more functional than have to inject himself with shit every 5 minutes. So I think he's not used to this, but it might even be doing something weird in his system. Although considering what you said earlier, nothing harmful. It's just he's not used to this kind of thing.
Yeah, we don't know yet. So why don't you go ahead and roll that fortune roll with 2 dice?
Okay.
We'll see what kind of ill effects this has on you. So there might be some addictive components to it.
5.
A 5, so a partial. Okay. I think in that case, so I'll offer you this. For about a month, unless you get more of the drug that Marcus was inhaling, I'm going to say that you have. I'm going to say that you have 3 of your stress boxes permanently marked for about a month, as you start to suffer some minor withdrawal symptoms. But for now,
Okay.
you feel really good. You feel
By the way,
awake and alive. Go ahead.
Does traumaing out lower your reset your stress, or are you still full stress technically for like
That does reset your stress to 0.
okay, +3 from the thing. All right.
Yeah. I'll say that as soon as this job is finished, an hour or two, you pretty much have all your stress back. But after that point, you're going to have 3 stress boxes marked, and probably for about a month in game.
I can work with that. Also, a month in game could be like every single session we go on it from this point,
It could.
depending on how these go.
It could.
But
But there's always things happening in the universe and the galaxy. Houses rising and falling, different factions warring for each other, and blasting ships that they don't know or aren't prepared to see out of the sky. Who knows what could happen?
Sorry for getting you addicted to drugs.
you know what? It's not an addiction if I don't take more. I don't know if it's technically true, but still, it's what I'm treating it as.
All right. But yeah, you feel like you have enough energy to last for like a couple hours or something. You're still in a lot of pain. There's a general physical malaise, even though your mind is on fire. You feel like you have energy to do stuff. But other than that, you're all right. Moving on, though. Is anybody else doing anything else in the course of the ship getting to this part of the cove?
I'll just I'll look over myself, put my flamethrower on Gizmo's desk, just as a subtle nod that might need some work. By my flamethrower, I mean the charred, exploded remains of the flamethrower. So
Right, yeah,
Probably
your whole arm is probably like completely bandaged up. Some of the nerve endings in it are probably dead by now.
yeah. Still though, I put the flamethrower down, and I just kind of I don't know. I might slink off to my room instead of the medical bay. Just rest up for a bit, but I'll be walking around the ship.
All right. Cronson, you gonna do anything with that, or are you busy with Tashur? What are you doing?
I am taking myself off mute. I don't know. I really don't want to do any rolls right now. Like, I just want to get this over with.
Okay. So you just kind of chill out, maybe look over the ship.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
What I'm gonna have to do once we get into that, once we get into port, see what I have to actually work on.
okay. All right then. In that case, we're gonna go ahead and move forward a little bit here. We wipe to. We wipe to the Liberated kind of coming in at an angle towards this part of the flotilla. Like you guys have been probably given direct instructions on where to go and stuff, but there are plenty of people here who either hide the details of their ship or they are dealing with someone else, not necessarily the Maelstrom pirates themselves. Because there's other people that live on the flotilla other than just the Maelstrom. And you guys line up with the the ship. Ben, why don't you describe the ship a little bit?
So the ship, how big is the ship?
I imagine it probably only transports, the standard cargo. So probably not too huge. They're probably all in like little pods and stuff. I imagine probably like a small frigate.
Okay, so the ship is it's pretty old. It's not necessarily like too banged up, but it's definitely it's kind of like when you guys on the street a car that's from the 40s or something. It's just like the body shape and the tech parts you can see is just out of date, and it's almost like if you saw a car that was made in Russia in 1930. It's like you wouldn't recognize anything about it. It's just old and crappy and foreign looking, essentially. But it's a pretty just standard cargo ship vessel, something that does its FTL travel to bring cargo from place to place. It's not essentially remarkable aside from how I guess obscure and
Does it have any color paint on the outside of it? Is it just white, black, blue, red stripes?
I think it has like a logo and some name and a text that like maybe is really old fashioned.
Okay, so maybe
That you've never heard of.
maybe like actual English rather than Galactic Common.
Yeah. Like you might recognize some of the symbols, but it's like when you look at the Constitution and the S's are F's.
Okay, yeah. Cool. And you guys line up next to the ship and start extending your docking boon. And all of a sudden, everyone hears the docking boon set, and then anyone who's on the ship would feel a large rocking, like as the ship juts forward a bit, almost as if the with the inertial dampeners being damaged, it probably knocks over a few things, but not necessarily you guys. And anyone who's near the bridge would hear Marcus go, God damn it, fucking piece of fucking shit, what the, ah! And all kind of obscenities flying out. And then over the loudspeaker, you guys would hear, We're here. As close as I can get you. God damn it.
I go over to the guy as we're like I look up the front. I'm not sure if it's is it like cameras with a bunch of screens as the helm, or is it an actual window on the front?
I believe there's an actual window that screens kind of lay.
Okay, so yeah, I'll go up to the helm and look out and see where exactly we are, and I just ask Marcus looking over the seat, and how close is close enough? How close is this, rather? I just look at him and say, I will never die. And I go over to see if I can get out.
Yeah. It says there's no environment over there. I need some fire suits or something. Or fucking asshole could go, sure. Why even? Yeah.
Karn, your suit. Could you fix the ship?
More than likely. On one condition. That man doesn't get back in the cockpit. Karn holds up just like a printout and he's like, "This is what you did with your little stunt. Do you see this?" And he lets it flip down and it's just this huge long list of everything that's gone wrong. Uh, okay. I'm just giving this dude crap. I didn't realize it was gonna be a command.
Well, because you're commanding him to do something.
I was talking to Bon, and I was just like, "This is the evidence as to why he shouldn't fly."
All right, I look over to him and I just say, I look over, turn his chair around, just kind of lift him out of it, pat him on the back and say, frankly, kid, I don't know what you're doing now.
Shots fired.
In that case,
All right.
effect is standard.
I hope he knows I'm just fucking with him, but if he doesn't, well, I guess that would be a failure, wouldn't it? All right. It would just be normal dice because of injuries, so. Oh, right. 4. So partial success.
If this were an insight roll, hey man, why don't you? You can also see the.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't nothing else that I'm good at. What exactly am I supposed to do here? Like,
Kid, keep yourself in line. Help where you can, and don't do anything stupid. We'll tell you when we need you, and we'll tell you for what. All right. For now.
he says back to you, look, Bond, you need me. I'm the only one who can really pilot this tub. No one else is gonna be able to do it. Not even Cronson over there. Whatever the hell his name is. You know you need me. At least let me get us out of here before you make that kind of decision.
We're parked. You don't need to do anything more at the helm.
He says, as he kind of like looks down and almost claws at his face a little bit, he says, I gotta... Fine, you want me gone? Fine. But you're gonna have to hand over more than my fair share of this job if you want me to get out of here. Drop me off at the Maelstrom.
Option
Being very dramatic. But if you want to leave, I am okay with it. And I just tell him, sit in your room. We will be at the Maelstrom soon enough. We'll be at the Maelstrom soon enough. You may join them if you wish.
Yeah, he does so, and you get this fierce look from him, as if he's like iron-willed, determined to do this. And you
Bond
get
just looks kind of tired back at him.
Sure. You get the impression that if you weren't to do what he asked and maybe give him a little bit extra as like a pension or something, he wouldn't be leaving. I'm hearing myself again. He wouldn't be leaving the ship without maybe doing some damage or something crazy.
That does appear to be Kronos. Also, as he goes to his room, I'm just gonna, sit outside it for a bit in case he peeks his head out. Does peek his head out, I'm just gonna stare at him and see if I can get him to go back in his room.
Alright. He looks at you when this happens, and he just kind of slinks back and says, "Oh, sorry, whatever." And he just shuts the door.
Hmm.
You can see that
Yeah.
his quarters are like completely dark.
I'm half tempted to just go up to the door and break the lock, just in case. But for now, we have enough broken stuff on this ship, and I'll wait for Constantine to get back to do that.
Alright, Needles, what are you doing?
It's a great question.
Isn't it?
I'm not really.
I mean, you could just be hanging out. That is an option.
I think she's mostly just hanging out, like, just like hoping that the job gets done so can restock and properly get everyone patched up.
Okay. Alright, in that case, Gizmo, you have an environmental suit, essentially, on your body, and you need it in order to, like, exist. So you're going to go over to this strangely labeled ship and take to shore with you?
Yep.
Okay. The docking boom is mounted, and you guys get into the airlock, and we see a kind of like an exterior view of the docking boom, as like it's lit. There are lights in it. It's almost like those accordion things that you see when you're like getting into an airplane.
Yeah, like those things that the plane idles up to, and then it
Yeah.
flips around the door.
Yeah. It's like that, and there are lights in the interior of it, and we see kind of like we see a shot of you guys walking through it. Basically, as two shadows, one of them small and one of them tall and thin. And we see past that in the background, we see ships kind of moseying about the cove, and we see the star Ren in the background, shining brightly through what looks to be a small asteroid field. But yeah, you guys head over there, and she says, as soon as you get to the door, I believe the door should be open. And there's a little like emergency latch on the outside, kind of recessed into the hull of the ship.
Cool.
I imagine you pull the latch.
Yep, I'm gonna pull the latch real slow like. Still a little worried about what may or may not come.
Okay. Yeah, you do so, and the ship rocks for a very slight moment. The strange ship that you're entering, not your ship. And it rocks a little bit, and then the door comes out. Tiny little vestiges of atmosphere escape into the void of space as the door comes forward towards you, and then with these powerful arms slides to the right very slowly. Here's a determination we should make, and I want input from everybody on this. So everybody on mute. Do we hear things in space as if they were underwater, or do we not hear anything?
Well, since you can't hear anything, you shouldn't hear anything.
If there is no medium for the sound to travel through, there is no reason why we should be able to hear it.
Needles?
Although there are ghosts, I agree.
I guess I'll go with the consensus. I kind of like the idea of hearing things like they're underwater, but I'll go with the consensus of the group.
I think maybe like a tune would allow you to maybe do that, but
I am a ghost. I should be able to do that.
You guys okay with putting it to a vote since we have 2 and 2?
I mean, if we have 2 and 2,
Or
then
not
the
a
vote
not a
wouldn't
vote,
count
a
as much.
roll. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm okay with the. I can go for the slight sounds, the muffled sounds.
Okay. All right. In that case, unfortunately, it is 3-1, Ben. But essentially, what you guys would hear in that case is a slight like. And inside it is completely dark except for a few barely flickering lights. Looks like whatever happened, the ship doesn't have a ton of power. And you guys are able to get in.
Hello. Is anyone out there?
Much like the discussion we just had, you don't really hear too much.
So that means there's like a whole lack of everything. Alright, cool. Karn is going to take a step in, look back at the shore and be like, let me check it out first.
All right. Are you gonna turn your mag boots on?
Yep.
Okay. Tashur does the same, and she nods and stays put. She stays perfectly still, in fact. You enter in. Kind of to your left, you see that there is a it's a larger helm than your ship has, but a lot of your ship is dedicated to armor, bulkheads, actual hull defenses, weapons, that sort of stuff, as well as quarters. But it's a much larger and wider helm. You see a couple of humanoid-looking figures, and with the little bit of light that you have that kind of flashes here and there, you see that they're just like completely frozen over. Their eyeballs popped out. Not pretty. It looks like they were exposed to vacuum and it didn't agree with them.
Karn is just gonna shake his head a little bit. Damn shame. I'm gonna continue looking through the ship for the cocoon.
Okay. So you go through most of these areas. The ship isn't that big, so it's more like a couple of quarters for the piloting crew. The majority of the ship, as you look through, seems to be dedicated to these tubes of some sort, and the by and large majority of them appear to be like built into the ship. However, there appears to be one that is still fully lit. Looks like there's something, some sort of humanoid, maybe even a human itself. Wait, there's a human in here? And they're in cryostasis. They're receiving some form of life support. You can see the mist of cryogenic life support pouring into it, and you look over at one of the nearby consoles that probably directs a lot of the information and life support systems and such, and you're having a hard time recognizing it. You could try and give me a study, I think, would be a good one, if you wanted to figure it out. You can definitely tell that it doesn't have very much power left to it.
What's my position?
Your position is going to be, we'll say risky, because there's a risk that you could press the wrong button or something. I would say that your effect is going to be standard.
Okay.
Let me get to your sheet here. That's not your sheet. This is your sheet. Okay. That would give you, I think that would probably give you a little bit less effect. That would have been for resolve, so that's for resolve and prowess. So no less effect. However, one less die for the study, which, unless you're willing to gamble on a bad effect or something, it would essentially mean you'd be flailing at it and rolling 2 at disadvantage. You can try and go for a hack, I would say, probably, but I would make it a desperate position rather than a risky one. It would still be -1 die, so it would just be 2 dice that you roll for the hack. So it would be desperate standard 2 dice.
Yeah, I'd rather roll a hack.
Okay. So yeah, desperate position, standard effect, just 2 dice for the hack. So you could put -1 for the bonus dice,
Okay.
I think.
Yep.
Woo!
Oh, there goes our pilot.
No, I'm not gonna fuck you guys over that much. I'm not that much of an asshole. I wouldn't waste his time like that. Okay. Something else is gonna happen. I think it's gonna be closer to you. Okay. Okay, you start fumbling around in a language you're not familiar with. This console, this ship, everything looks fucking archaic. This is an artifact of a ship, and if you had more time, maybe you could stick around, check it out, maybe learn a thing or two, or a bunch, about how engines used to work back in the day. Unfortunately, an alarm sounds on this console, and the only reason you hear it is because your suit picks it up. You end up connecting to it only to discover that you have no idea what's happening, but there's some sort of red alarm box flashing, and the power to this particular device seems to be failing entirely. The only way that you would be able to salvage this particular device is if you were to bring it aboard. You imagine that without the gravity generators and that sort of stuff, it'd be fairly easy. Obviously, it would be super heavy as soon as you got it into the ship. But you'd probably be able to pull it along. But I'm going to say that you're going to need to share the power of your suit with this device in order to keep it working. And
Okay.
that is going to mean that you're going to have a real bad time if you choose to do that. I'm going to say that that would really be the only way that you would, in game, complete your job, and out of game, have your pilot. I'm going to say that why don't we just start a clock here? I think that sounds like the most appropriate thing here. This clock is going to have 4 segments. And I'm going to fill in one of them as you start to hook this thing up to your suit's internal power here. Once this fills up completely, you are going to lose containment and will start flickering in and out of phase to the point where you might phase out of this existence entirely. So, sounds like it's time to hurry up.
I will definitely be hurrying back towards it over the radio. I've got a life pod. No one else really seems to be alive. I'm gonna need help as soon as I get on this board.
Got it.
Tashur taps into your comms and says, Do you require my assistance?
Only if you know how to only if you know how to get this over there without using me as a battery.
Okay. She says, has something happened?
The life cocoon seems to be failing, and I'd really rather not let whoever this is die. Doesn't seem right.
Very well. We can bring it aboard.
That was the plan. And
I will join you. And you see her, like, you see, like, sparks of electricity go between, like, electricity go between her feet and the floor of this vessel as she just rushes right in and grabs it with you, and she starts rushing back out towards the boom.
Alright. Karn is following.
Okay. I'm going to say there's one more tick here. Audra and Vaughn, what are you two doing?
Watching in suspense, and if there's any way to help, I guess I would probably want to put on an environment suit at this point.
Okay, you guys probably only have like one or two. I'll say you guys have one for right now. You probably need to because there's a ship upgrade that allows for additional envirosuits. So you guys probably only have the one right now, excluding Cronson and his power suit and stuff. But yeah, you can do that.
Do you want to take it, Audra, or should I take it?
You can take it. I'll get myself ready for. It sounds like there might be someone who needs some medical attention.
Yeah. We wouldn't have to have any space rope on board, even just regular rope.
I don't think that's something that's like an upgrade or something you guys need to find necessarily. So I would say that you guys have like a mag chain.
Cable, something.
Yeah, like a mag chain. It's not necessarily strong enough to really tether anything to your ship larger than maybe like a crate or a body, or maybe like a a small armored vehicle or something like that. You definitely couldn't take it into warp with you, but I would say something like that would work.
Vaughn is like a small armored vehicle. I think he can fit. Anyways. Yeah, the main thing is I would like to attempt to use the rope, and I think attune also helps with this, just to move around space without being, like, because environment suits, I don't believe, have any jet thrusters on them pre-made. Maybe for zero gravity they might, but I don't know.
They would have mag boots, but not really jet thrusters now.
So just something to help me move a bit more freely in space would be good.
Sure.
So tie a rope to the gangplank, or any bit of solidness I can find. Maybe the handle that sort of. I'm assuming there's like a stray handle from Maidens that I might be able to tie it to, something or other. Point being, I want to get it secure, and I want to be able to sort of adjust myself and my trajectory with it. If I need to jump for something, if I need to, if I need to react quickly, I can jump out, grab Karn, or grab a tool, or grab something or other, and use it if I need to.
Well, they are rushing out of a ship into a docking boom, and through the docking boom, they're running towards the Liberated.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that you necessarily need to go out into actual like vacuum, into actual space, but I mean, you can definitely do this if you think it's something that will help.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Are you tying it to the outer hull of the ship, or are you tying it to something inside and then just keeping the airlocks, one part of the airlock open?
Is there something outside the ship I can tie it to?
For the sake of brevity, I'll say there is.
Okay. So yeah, I'll see if I can tie it outside the ship. Somewhere where I can easily climb back in if I need to. Although it might be prudent just to keep the one door open anyways.
Okay, so that sounds like it might be a rig or maybe a scramble.
I can do scramble.
Okay, because it sounds like you're trying to scramble to a position so that you can catch something if something were to happen to the docking boon or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Get in position just to help if anything goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Okay.
And get in position to, in fact, move to catch it or to help with whatever happens in case anything happens. So be ready to move and move to a good position. So I'll scramble.
Yeah, we're going to say that's a risky position, standard effect.
Right.
Because of your prowess injuries, you would take a
Effect is limited,
negative
and-
1 die and less effect.
Yep.
So it would be limited in that case. So risky, limited effect.
Yep. You know, I thought this would go better, but I think I just might have killed Bon actually this time.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, if that isn't working, I'm going back inside the ship. But, yeah. So if something goes horribly awry, I can't really help it.
Right.
Although a tune can help you spacewalk, can't it? Not to mention, you said the Envirus who had mag boots, meaning I could, if I was floating away, activate the mag boots to help stabilize me to the ship.
Well, I imagine you already activated the mag boots, or else you would have literally, as soon as you stepped outside,
Well, yeah.
you would have just flown out.
But what goes horribly wrong?
First, you lose your chain. You try to grab it and pull it down as it's trying to float. Maybe it's attracted by the gravity well of the cove and all the flotilla of ships that are there. But you aren't able to activate the magnetic lock on it soon enough, and it flies out of your hands. Unless you were willing to potentially crater on whatever center is in the cove, or at least crater onto a ship. Probably not a great idea to go after it.
I don't think they'd be kind enough to open a window, no.
Yeah, no. Secondly, let me take a look here. Ba, ba, ba. So, okay. Essentially what happened is, there's a couple of airlocks on the ship. The one that you were on is on the port side of the ship. I think port is the right one. That's the left one, isn't it? I'm trying to remember all the stuff that I learned from...
Port is left.
Yeah.
The ship's
Port is
left.
left.
To be exact.
Yeah.
Because they both have 4 letters.
Yeah, so the one on the port is where the docking tube is. There's another one starboard, and that one is open and free. There's no docking boom or anything attached there. So that's probably the one you went through, and then you just kind of hustled your way as fast as you could over to the other side of the ship, using the mag boots to keep you on the ship's hull. And we see that as soon as you get to the boom You see Tashur and Gizmo running across the boom with their mag boots, and you just see like their shadow, like we saw earlier, and the chain flies out of your hand as you kind of like lose focus for a second, and you kind of look around, and unfortunately, one of the places you look, one of the things that the envirosuit doesn't really protect you from, is the burning fucking rays of the goddamn sun.
You'd figure that would be something the environment would be protecting from, at least somewhat.
Yeah, but these are like bargain envirus. This is a bargain envirosuit.
Who buys a bargain envirosuit? Anyways, moving on.
Someone who's on the
We
run
do,
from
apparently.
Yes, yeah.
someone who's on the run from the hegemony, probably.
It's like buying a bargain bungee cord, or
Mhm.
like a bungee, like a bargain parachute.
So I'm going to have you take, in addition to losing your cable, I'm going to have you take a level 1 harm. And it is going to be effectively sun blindness with associated pain as your eyes try to adjust to direct rays of a star.
Neat. Also, I'll be right back. 2 seconds.
Alright, I was going to ask if you wanted to resist any of these consequences.
You know what? That might be a good idea. What would that be?
So that sounds, since this was a scramble, and these are things like you're trying to get over there, you're trying to rush over with your boots even though they're slow, you're trying to grab a hold of the chain and make sure you don't look at the light. I'm going to say that this is probably a prowess resistance.
Do you have the minus dies on resistances?
I don't believe you get a -2 resistance.
Okay,
I believe that's just for action rolls.
got it. In that case, 6. We're good.
Woo! Yeah, no more stress accrued. Awesome. Yeah, you grab on. Now you can either grab onto the chain or you can protect your eyes. You can't do
I'll
both,
grab on.
unfortunately.
Protecting the eyes would not get rid of the harm, would it?
Yes, it would get rid of that harm.
Okay. And protecting, if I grab the chain, I'm still on the ship, right? I'm not floating off into nowhere.
Currently.
Alright. You know what? The chain was good while it lasted, but I would rather not be blind right now.
Okay. So you do, maybe what happens instead, as we kind of reverse and rewind, what happens instead is the chain starts floating towards the light of the sun, and with some quick thinking and quick motions, you put your arm over your eyes. You end up losing the chain as it kind of floats off into space and then towards the cove. But you're smart enough to put your arm over your eyes and protect yourself from the sun's rays, and don't take any harm from that.
Good. So, I will basically just get to somewhere that's somewhat blocked by the sun, and I'm just going to keep with them as like a what is it? A backup in case anything goes horribly wrong.
Okay. That happens. I'm going to mark one more tick here. So this is the important one, Karn. You guys are in the airlock right now, and you're fumbling to get the door closed. Not even bothering with the docking boon. just so that you can get atmosphere to this zone. And let me see here. I'm not hearing myself, so I imagine you're probably muted if you want to say anything. I'm thinking that...
There's not much to say at this point.
Sure, yeah. I'm thinking a hack or maybe a rig would probably be good here so that you can try to breeze through a lot of the safety protocol stuff and all the warnings and just get inside the ship, or at least to get atmosphere into the airlock and shut the outer door.
Desperate?
Yeah, I'm going to say this is desperate. You can already see the power systems in your suit starting to fail. You see power warnings. It's like the thing on a battery saying, you only have like 11% power left. Your effect is going to be great. I think it's going to lessen because of your injury. I think, no, actually neither one of those are related to insight. But you do take a -1 die from the quote-unquote hentai damage.
So what is the standard?
It's going to be great.
Great. So it's only less effect if it actively affects what you're using? Okay.
Well, it's less effect. The way that it works is you're essentially writing down harm that's associated with one of the primary stats. So, Slap by Bot was Resolve, because that was a consequence of one of your Resolve rolls, your Attune roll. The Blasters were a result of a Prowess roll. The Blaster Shot was a result of a Prowess roll, but the Hentai damage was the result of an Insight roll. That's why it comes into effect now.
I thought that was another attune.
I don't think so. I think that was when you were trying to... I believe that was when you were trying to first access to Shure's information banks and stuff. I think that was while you were still on the Forsaken. I might be wrong about that. Am I wrong about that?
It wasn't when I was still on Forsaken, it was when we had gotten back to the ship and I was dealing with the giant, with the thing trying to plow its way into our existence, and I was trying to attune again with her help.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I misinterpreted that. My bad. So, just normal roll then. Alright. Let's see what you get. A 4. Okay. I'm going to say... Go ahead.
Don't forget to mark XP for the desperate roll.
Yeah, all of your desperate rolls, make sure you're marking XP for those. For the associated stat. Okay. I think what happens is that... I think two things happen. You shut the door, you start venting atmosphere into the airlock. Eventually, the door inside of the actual liberated ship itself will open, but it'll take repressurization for that to happen. However, I think your suit does start running out of power. So you did manage to save a life. You, Tushur, and whoever this mystery person is, as well as their stasis cocoon, are safely on board the ship. But your suit does run out of power. And I think what happens is, well, why don't you tell us what exactly goes on when your suit runs out of power? Do you just start phasing it out? Do you disappear entirely, appear somewhere else? What happens?
I have no idea.
Okay, well,
I'd never considered it.
all right.
So, is the suit a containment suit, a conductor? Like, is it what's bringing you here, or is it like a sort of amplification that amplifies your physical self?
It's a little bit of all that
All right.
because, well, I mean, just by how we've been describing it and how when I get cuts in it, I start to leak and stuff.
Okay.
I don't think you leak because the suit itself isn't destroyed. It's just the containment field has started to burst open. So maybe,
Well, no, that's what I was saying. I said it's partially a container, it's partially keeping me here type thing.
yeah, maybe.
So maybe you start like radiating, so to speak. Like there's radiation that starts to come off of you.
Yeah, it starts like it's there's like a pulse type thing.
Well, I was gonna say what the audience would see is we would see the door close. We would see Karn struggling to press the button, um, or maybe he presses it really fast, and then the atmosphere starts to vent into the airlock, and we see Karn just kind of like almost T-posing. He kind of floats up a little uh, off of the ground because his mag boots aren't being powered anymore. Um, and we see just bright, like viciously bright light emanating through his viewports and any of the areas that like contact the outside, any breathing holes or anything like that. We see just bright light, and uh, I was going to say that maybe you're no longer in your suit, and uh, instead you come face to face with our old buddy, Hadrox Mar.
Oh, fun.
And we hear a little bit of like of what happens in the airlock. Maybe it's like kind of subdued in the background, and we hear biological contaminant detected. Gamma radiation exposure detected. And it's just kind of in the background as you and the audience are in this pure white world like we saw before. And you see that same fanged, almost skull-like face kind of trying to break free through this white existence. And we see you, and we see you as probably you were dressed or things that you were wearing when the whole experiment went down to cause all this. Why don't you describe like what you looked like, what you were wearing at the time?
So I was probably about 2 feet taller. Um, Big bushy beard, braided together, with various items thrown in, not thrown in, like
Like rings and stuff?
yeah, there's like a ring in the braid and stuff. Um, I have on like a white coat over a uh standard spacesuit type looking thing, not spacesuit, like a jumper, like almost like a Fallout Vault suit.
Sure, yeah.
Um, and I'm just holding a clipboard, standing next to what would essentially create the ghosts, and it's a singularity device that was meant to uh, harness the powers of deep space, the radiation in the deep space, for a similar faster than light style of travel.
Okay. Yeah, we see you and we see this device just covered in white. We still see like shading and definition on your face and stuff. Um, and we see this face facing you, and it's huge. Like, if you were to look at the Liberated, maybe like half a mile out, it'd be about the size of this face. And yeah, I should have grabbed a picture of it, but I didn't know this was going to happen. I'll work on that during the break.
Sounds good.
And yeah, we see you. We see this face. We see this device, and the device starts to activate. Like, you would be familiar with its activation process. There are probably some lights and stuff that kind of flash or revolve. Maybe like a cylindrical tube with like slits cut in it, that sort of thing. Very sci-fi.
Mhm.
And you hear a bunch of the voices. You don't see them, but you hear a bunch of the voices of your former, not compatriots, but co-workers, your code researchers who are working on this device. And they're all like screaming, shut it down, why is it doing this, why is this happening, there shouldn't be this many tetron particles, why are these levels so high, shut it down. And you see
Myself?
you don't see yourself, but you do see that this face is starting to break through as the crux of the accident happens. An explosion happens simultaneously from the device as well as the face. And the white light collapses and shrinks down into your suit, as we now see the airlock of the Liberated. And you would see the ceiling of the airlock as you kind of like fall down onto your back. And you have the distinct impression that something is now tying Hadroxmar into this world. Whether it be the site of the accident, maybe there's some sort of warp field around there, or some sort of subspace field or something like that going on. You're not entirely sure, but it's a ways away, and you feel like if you ever went back there, you don't know, you have this sneaking suspicion you might find him.
I don't think I'd want to find him.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the offer, though. Guys, I accidentally released Satan into the universe.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So that happens. The light eventually recedes, though what we see as the audience members is we see that Tushar has pulled out a nearby, almost like a giant electrical plug, from the side of the airlock, and
Clear.
her fingers have kind of extended, very like Ghost in the Shell style, and have formed different kinds of wires between the plug and your suit. And she seems to be connecting it to you, and as you kind of like regain your footing, your consciousness, and realize where you are, you see the containment field re-engaging, reinitializing. You see power meters filling up.
Karn probably sits up, gasping a little bit, looks directly at Bun and says, "We may have an issue."
I know, I lost the rope.
No. Bigger than a rope. We can replace a rope. That's easy.
Okay.
Let's just say, they had, scary stories when you were growing up, right?
Occasionally.
Take the worst one, times it by about 1,000, and that's the kind of problem we're looking at.
Hmm.
All right.
I could take it.
Well, we don't need to worry right now. Right now, we need to see whatever I just risked my ass for. And at that, Karn's gonna stand up and kind of like tap on the glass.
Typically, part of our job is knowing what we risk our asses for.
Yeah, so interestingly enough, as you all look over at the stasis cocoon, the person in the stasis cocoon is looking back at you. Its eyes open, seems to be awake, and it is tapping on the glass before you do. Ben, you are in the stasis cocoon. I know there's not a whole lot for you to do here, but what do you do?
Basically nothing, just kind of wake up, look around, touching a little package, like a little booklet. He's completely disoriented. There's nothing I can do.
Okay. You see a ginger-looking male, pretty pale skin, I'd imagine, and he seems to be completely out of his wits, and he's holding some sort of informational thing. You're not sure you've seen anything like that. It looks almost as if it looks almost as if a DEX, like one of these devices that you use to look up information or read novelizations or something, was converted into some sort of physical matter.
Hmm. Is he alive? Or is he just pretending to be alive?
Are you asking in character or out of character?
In character. Can he hear me through the glass, by the way?
Yeah, I'll say he can. Just like, Ben, you would, just like we discussed before, you would probably hear, like, just kind of mumbling like this. You wouldn't really be able to hear anything very clearly.
I take it neither of you are certain either. Hmm.
Mm-mm.
Let's pop him open and find out.
Okay.
You might want to get your blaster out just in case.
Bun will hold his blaster in his good hand.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like the protocols for life support are the only thing that's happening. Looks like the cryo support protocols have failed due to a lack of power. But it looks like there's a big on-screen button with a console that's kind of attached to it. It says something in an unfamiliar language, but it's big and red, so maybe press it.
I pressed the big button.
Okay. You hear a loud as your pod has opened, Rusty.
I think that.
Rusty, you might be muted.
Well, no one here speaks English, right?
You're not sure. You get the impression that there's at least one person in this room who is humanoid. Looks to be a human. They look like they have some implants maybe going on. They're a female. The other other three entities in the room don't look like they're living biological humans. They look like they are some other weird species, or maybe some sort of body mod, or something contained in a suit that might not be it might not be used to like human atmosphere, nitrous oxide, that sort of stuff.
Wonderful. My question was, does anyone speak English?
You don't know, and I answered that question.
Yeah, out of character, like what they were. So I think he's just speaking a language you guys don't know what he's doing. He's just saying gibberish.
Because I did just say something, so could he understand that? Was that English, or was he...
I think what happens is the computer pipes up, and it's just like a very simple VI. It's not an AI or anything like that. And it says, reconstructing language. Language reconstructed. Ancient Terran. English.
What was that?
Aaron. Old.
I think when no one's responding, he like changing language several times during this like initial babbling.
Yeah,
and eventually a few words might catch.
Yeah, the computer catches several of the different languages, and then one of them you guys understand. It's something that a different kind of pirate from a different sector used to speak. Bon, you probably are familiar with this language and are probably familiar with it enough to speak it. What do you say, Rusty?
Forsooth, what hath thy wrought? So if they understand part of the language, it's extremely antiquated.
Sure.
Yeah, I look over and I look over to you and I say the equivalent of, "Oh boy, fancy pants, fun."
Fancy Pants? Good to meet you, Fancy Pants.
Wasn't a name, it was an insult.
What's he saying?
I go back to the
I think
Galactic Common. He's
he's
speaking some
trying-
sort of old aristocrat language, gobbledygook, whatever it is.
Oh, fancy pants.
I was thinking this is a version of Standard that's very proto, like from a very long time ago. So it has most of the cognates. Crossover.
Okay, so like here you're talking. He's speaking common, but if he was holding a golf ball in his mouth, that kind of like weird doesn't quite sound right, but you can kind of understand it.
More like Old English or something like that. Think the way that Shakespeare wrote and how that might translate to today.
Technically, that's early modern English.
I suppose. Language is fun. Anyways.
Fancy Pants. thy, where, where, hmm, he's not really like fully awake and communicating. I mean, this is his first minute of life. He's a
Yeah,
little,
yeah, Rusty. The inside of the ship is fairly dingy and dirty, not very well maintained. But you note that with deductive reasoning that you have, it's definitely a ship. It looks like it was recently created within like the last year or two. Um, you also get the idea that there are symbols of some sort of organization that have been attempted, like people have tried to attempt to get rid of them, but they're like everywhere. Uh, Obviously, the rest of you would know that this is the symbol of the hegemony and specifically the 51st Legion, but uh, Rusty, you think that this is some sort of maybe mercenary or military vessel? It seems like it might be well armed.
how is the cockpit nearby, or are we in like the cargo hold?
You're in sort of like a corridor. To your right would be, or no, I said port. So to your left, as you're facing the inside of the ship, would be the area to the bridge, but you wouldn't necessarily see the bridge from here.
How like is it just like a few seconds walk away?
It's like a minute walk.
That's not too bad. Then I think he kind of takes a few steps toward it, and he goes toward the woman, and he kind of package into her hands, and somehow kind of like instinctively just walks to the bridge and just kind of starts looking around.
If you go stumbling off, I'm going to follow, and I'm just going to put a hand on your shoulder and say, "Hold on there. Doth thy have a name?"
Um, as far as I know, I no. I know that he is Fancy Pants. As to who did he say
The fancy pants is talking to you, but
points to you? Um, that
again, that's what I called you. But we'll ignore that for now because I'm feeling nice, and also I can't
is
do
my
shit
name
like I-
is my name Fancy Pants?
Why not? Yes. Welcome to the ship,
Yeah.
Fancy Pants.
Thank you. Well met. Humble greetings.
Name's Bon.
Bon. Captain
More or less.
says the word captain because the first time he said it, he kind of like he just tasted something new, but he rolls with it.
Yes, your response, more or less. So,
I'd like to sit down. And he kind of points toward the chair.
all right, keep moving, and I'll basically put a hand on your back and just kind of nudge you over to a chair.
Okay, he collapses like kind of into the chair after taking the longest walk he's ever taken. Looking at the instrument panel, he seems happier.
Want to check his vitals.
He seems fit as a fiddle. Probably, aside from the obvious impacts of cryogenic sleep, he seems like he is automatically like peak pinnacle of human biology.
Huh. And was I given a package? Did I hear that right?
Yes, you were given a package. It feels strange. It's um, have you ever like held paper before, Audra?
No.
Yeah, it's something very strange. It feels kind of smooth and rough, but the edges are very sharp.
I'd like to examine it more closely, sort of turn it around in my hands, and
That sounds like a study.
yeah, it does.
All right, let me pull up your sheet here. Okay, so that would have been your resolve because you were trying to sway them. So just a standard roll, no penalties for that. It's a study. Your position's going to be controlled. Your effect is going to be limited unless you think that there's something that you can do to improve that.
No, limited sounds about right.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely a language you can't really understand right now. Though the computer did mention to you in Galactic Common that it was an ancient Terran language called English. At least when he first started speaking. And then he went through all these different languages.
Yeah.
All
Got a
right.
3.
So you got a 3. Cool, cool. Yeah, you have no fucking idea what this is. You're not sure if you're supposed to like eat it, or if your eyes are supposed to be on it, or if you're like supposed to use it in the bathroom, or if it's like a sex toy or something. You're not entirely sure at all.
Okay.
Yeah, it just confuses you more. I am going to have you take a level 1 harm as confused, because it's just there's a lot of information here, and none of it makes sense. You see like ships and you see humans, but nothing else seems to make sense.
I hurt my brain.
Yeah, you hurt your brain a little bit. Okay. So that happens. Yeah, you sit down to this console, Rusty, and or do you want to go by Fancy Pants now?
Rusty doesn't know his name because no one can use the user manual yet, so he thinks his name is Fancy Pants.
Okay. Well, then I'll use that
eventually.
I'll use that until otherwise specified.
It'll be your alias for now.
So you take a seat down at the console. Everything feels much more natural. This feels like a helm seat. This feels like where you're supposed to pilot this ship. Why don't you go ahead and give me a study here, and I'll pull up your sheet on the stream. We're going to be controlled position, standard effect. Do you want to push yourself or anything like that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right, a 5. Okay. It is probably going to take you some extra time to get used to everything that's going on here. There's a bit of a language barrier, but you're starting to see little inflections here and there. And luckily enough, the computer is smart enough to adjust some of the text and everything to different languages, and it starts adjusting it to one of the languages that you're familiar with and that Bond would be familiar with. And you start recognizing different words and stuff, but it's still going to take a bit of time. You're not used to how these engines perform, what powers them, that sort of stuff. It might even be that this kind of FTL drive is completely alien to you. But it's going to take you some time to get used to everything. What is everyone else doing? Specifically, What are you doing, Gizmo?
I'm going through that little pod, seeing if there's anything in it.
There's a bit of condensed water from the cryogenic process ending, but aside from that, doesn't appear to be.
Alright. I'm gonna start tearing it apart.
All right, that sounds like. Let me see here.
Then never mind. I'm gonna go to bed. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say it sounds maybe like a rig, but if you want to go to bed, that's totally fine too. Tushar looks at you and says, "There was only this much I was able to do to prevent his entry. I do not know if we will be able to stop them. Will you be able to stop them?"
No idea. I have a headache. I feel like I have been torn apart and stitched back together with with an arc laser. I need sleep.
You hear an alarm, just a small one, notifying you that your suit is fully charged up and that basically the alternator of the suit, the fusion reactor that's keeping it in line and keeping the containment field in place, is online, and unless otherwise directed or stated, or if there's any other problems, there shouldn't be any more power issues. And she puts the plug back, retracts her connections and stuff, and her fingers go back to normal. And she says, "I will require the ship's power in order to power the cocoon."
For what?
"In order to complete the task."
Sure.
"Very well." And she she looks over the pod up and down every angle, and there's a bit of a light fixture in the top of it, as well as the console that's on the side of it. And she puts her hand on the console and puts her hand on the plug that she put away. And you see tiny little sparks of electricity kind of traveling between the two. And the light on the pod, the cocoon, starts getting brighter and brighter.
Ooh. Karn is going to walk away and let her do whatever she's going to do.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and take our break here, and we'll come back in about 10 minutes here. Come back at around 9:25 Eastern Daylight Time, and find out what is going to happen with our new crewmate Fancy Pants, aka Rusty, and what's going to happen with Tushar.
Cool.
All right, break. And we're back with more Scum and Villainy. Not a whole lot more, though. We've got some issues going on kind of behind the scenes. Nothing too important. No one injured or anything like that. No emergencies. Just some things come up. So we're going to go ahead and finish off the mission, and then we'll be closing out after that. So, in tune with that, Tushar is just taking some power from the ship and powering up the cocoon. Riot and Fancy Pants are in the pilot's seat and just kind of going over things. Needles, you're just still confused by that booklet, and Gizmo, you are going to bed, essentially, just passing out. And I don't blame you, after everything that's just happened. So, Tushar looks to try and find you, Gizmo, but after she can't find you, I assume you're behind like a locked door, so she's not really able to locate you, so she goes up to Needles, being the only other one that she's really had much contact with, just through like being close in proximity. She goes up to you, Needles, and says, "The cocoon has been repowered. Nothing is left but to place the cocoon back onto the ship in order for me to become hidden and for the unlock code to never be found. I am entrusting you with this unlock code. Please make it a good one."
How many digits does it need to be?
64.
No problem. Could I beg a favor from you before we send you off?
I may listen, but may not act.
Do you know what this thing is?
Are you holding up the pamphlet?
Yes.
She looks at the pamphlet, kind of turns her head like a dog, and she reaches out to grab it, and she says, "May I hold it?"
Sure. Go ahead.
She grabs it, she takes a look at it, scans over it. You see that her eyes just kind of like move along, and she breezes through the pages, and she says, "Yes. Yes. Yes, I am familiar with this information, though it has been very long since one of these ships was encountered. I will upload the information to a console so that you may understand it. The translation is much easier for me than it may be for your computer."
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, she puts her hand on a nearby console on the ship. Might be like the door of the airlock or something. And a bunch of data enters into the console. You kind of see between her fingers a bunch of screens of English text changing into a bunch of different languages, and she releases her hand and gives you back the pamphlet, and she says, "Will someone assist me in placing myself in the cocoon and placing the cocoon in the ship?"
Sure, we can do that. It's part of what we agreed to.
"Yes. Remember that you must contact the cloud in order to receive your payment, but they will have no problems making the payment." And you see her eyes shut for a second, and the audience hears like a couple of beeps, whispers, or not whispers, but like beeps, whistles, and kind of like subdued R2D2 type stuff. And then she opens her eyes and she says, "There, the deposit has been made. It will unlock in 10 hours."
Thank you very much. Let me go talk to the captain, and we'll see about getting you in place.
Okay. Captain, you are starting to feel kind of sluggish. These wounds are not reopening, but they're starting to slow you down a bit. The adrenaline in your system, whether artificial or not, is kind of starting to wear thin, and you that was a really good feeling. You're kind of starting to want some more.
Yeah. Well, considering my trauma, I will definitely be seeking to get adrenaline the old-fashioned way. However, as I'm just kind of sitting with this guy, Mr. Fancy Pants, in the bridge, I look at him like scanning over all the buttons and dials, looking at the controls, and he seems to like have an innate grasp of them almost. Looks like, right?
Yeah, it would seem that way. It's a little uncanny, like as everything's being translated, he's like pressing buttons and getting things faster than the translations happen. It's almost as if, like, it's still slow going. He's still only getting to like how thrusters and impulse engines work in tandem together, but he's starting to understand it faster than the translation can go on. So you get the impression that whoever this was, maybe they're like a synth or something, and if they were, they're probably built for like piloting, or maybe they're programmed that way.
Either way, I just say, so, kid, you know your way around a ship, huh?
A ship, he says, tasting the word.
At the very least, you know your way around a bridge.
Bridge.
You former hegemony?
This word is pretty unfamiliar to you. If you're speaking, buddy, Ben, we can't hear you. Well, in the sake of brevity, I'll fill in for the time being. He looks at you and says, "Thou art hegemony. What is the hegemony?"
No. Hegemony are the bad guys. We're the good guys. This is just a hegemony ship.
And he kind of looks around. Rusty, if you can hear me, you would realize and kind of conjoin the two things together. It's the symbols that you saw a bunch all over, and this word hegemony. But I'll leave it up to you how to handle the phrase bad guys.
At any rate, I assume Needles comes in at some point.
Yeah, Needles probably comes in at this point. Fancy Pants is just kind of pressing different buttons on the helm console, and things are translating.
Hey, we've still got to get Tasher situated in her pod and back on the ship.
Alright. Well, that might not actually be much of a problem. This guy here, I think he might be a hegemony synth or something that used to pilot their ships, because he's taken to this pretty well.
Really?
You see him...
Hegemony?
Hmm?
You think he's really hegemony?
He might have had a bit of a memory wipe or something, but whatever he is, he knows his way around this kind of ship.
Do we trust him?
If he is wiped, then I see no reason why we can't take advantage of his programming, although we might have Gizmo take a look at it. By the way, he gave you something, right?
Yeah, I had Tisha take a look at it. It seems like some kind of informational block. She uploaded it to one of our consoles, so we should be able to take a look at it later.
Yeah, Fancy Pants punches in a couple of buttons and brings up the file system, and he pulls up the whole file on the pamphlet, and it appears in a corner of the screen near or closest to where Needles is. And it details a bunch of information about some sort of luxury yacht company, and it basically says that there are created humans created in some sort of factory or lab or something. It's a little vague on the exact details, but it says that this particular model, it uses that word a few times, is named Rusty and is the perfect pilot for any luxury cruise vessel. And it mentions things like Paris, things like an afternoon in the Egyptian desert, or like it goes through all these different things that he would perhaps be able to take you through, all these different places or experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, places we've never heard of, and we probably assume are different systems or planets.
Some of them, yeah.
Now, Bon grew up on terra firma, or I guess xenofirma, either way on a planet rather than in a space station.
Mm-hmm.
Would he know about, like, paper and all the wonders that that brings? Or would that be as alien to him as it is to Audra?
I'm sorry, could you say that last part again?
Would paper and the wonders that that brings be just as alien to him as it is to Audra? Or would he being, or having some time aboard, not aboard, but growing up on like an actual planet, sort of a bit less connected to all the technology, give him a bit more of an idea of primitive stuff?
I mean, primitive stuff is the word, I would say. Not necessarily ancient things, but
Mm-hmm.
possibly primitive things.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't need, like, fucking warp engines for a planet, generally. You know, you'd only need, like, things for agricultural growth, population control, security, that sort of stuff. The best you would probably be able to know is that he doesn't seem to have been created on a world. Wherever he was created, and the term created is actually used a few times in his pamphlet, wherever he was created was either like a space station or some sort of planet-side facility. And then the ideas kind of conjoin, and you get the impression that wherever he was, that ship that he was on was probably transporting a bunch of them, and he was the only one who was left alive. Maybe they were going to somewhere on the Outer Rim colonies, maybe this sector, but wherever it would have been a very, very long time ago, maybe 1,000, 2,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm. All right. Good to know. I guess then I'll mention. So this guy, well, he's a pilot. Says he's more of a maybe not one to be outrunning starships or flying fighters, but well, He knows how to fly gently, I guess. One positive.
Well, I guess we're in need of a pilot.
Indeed. Alright. Well, hey, Fancy Pants. Or Rusty? I think your name's Rusty. It says there.
He looks at you and he just says, Rusty?
Yeah, that's you.
Not... Thine not fancy pants?
No, that was, my mistake, I guess. But save that as an alias, just in case.
Who art thine alias?
An alias is like, save that as an alternate name. Recognize them both.
As he's like looking at you and saying these words, you see his hands still working with the console, getting used to how it works, and occasionally looking over at some of the information presented.
So I'm gonna sort of bring up a map of the area, and I'm gonna see if I can set like a waypoint or a marker where we need to drop off Tusher.
We're
I mean-
there, aren't we?
You're attached to the ship.
Okay. Well, if we're there, then fair enough. I was gonna see if we could maybe bring the ship closer and test the new pilot, but if we're already there, then fair enough.
Yeah, you literally have a docking boom still attached to the ship.
In that case, so is the other robot still having troubles, or is she settled down by now?
Sure.
Yeah.
She's ready to go. She just needs help getting situated. Is that something that you want to do? Do I need to find Gizmo, or do you want me to throw on the fire suit and do it?
Depends on the definition of get situated.
Well, we need to move her. We need to move the pod back where it was.
I can take care of that.
Okay. Are you sure?
Nope. And I go on out.
Please be careful. There's only so much I can do.
You've done a lot. I appreciate it. But
I'm just saying, I can't bring you back from the dead.
you'll figure it out one day.
That's
I'm
not the answer I was hoping for.
Maybe with the
I'm
help
not
of an
saying you'll have to. I'm just saying might be a good skill to pick up.
maybe with the help of an interdimensional entity.
Hmm.
I'm now imagining basically a med bay, but with just summoning circles around the place, like a mix of occult and medical science. That sounds neat. But moving on. Yeah, I'm just gonna grab the cocoon with Tusher inside it, make sure she's all secure, which I assume she's done herself, but still.
She does if you want her to be. Otherwise, she's going to help you lift it up into the boom tube in the ship. Because this thing's, like, heavy.
Yeah,
Fair
how
enough.
about you have her help you? I know you're a big, strong guy, but, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you have, like, one damaged arm, so...
Yeah, you have a damaged arm. The adrenaline is starting to wear off. You're feeling pretty sluggish. It's not really a great look for you.
And I just say, doesn't matter if you'd lift with the legs, but I may need some assistance.
Am I the only one who imagined him saying that and just, like, going down into a Russian dance and just kicking it along? Anyways, for the sake of brevity, we'll say that you and Tusher, mostly Tusher, are able to lift it up and get it into the docking boom. And you're in an enviro suit, right? The same one you were in before?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, and you guys pull it along because there's no gravity in the docking boom, but you get into the ship and you find the slot where it was previously set up, and right before you put it in, um, Tashur looks at you and says, "Thank you. Your help is appreciated.
Yeah, so will yours. You've got the credits and all that, right?
You will need to contact the Ashtari Cloud for those credits. However, the deposit to them has already been made. Once the deposit is made from them to your accounts, you will have the funds."
I just look at her for a bit. If we get double crossed, I'm coming back for you. And I put her in the thing and shoot her off.
She nods, and before you do, she says, she like grabs your arm, and she says, "One more thing. There is a great and terrible darkness looming. When Cronson wakes up, you should speak to him about it. I have and she kind of tilts her head, feeling, and tilts it back, that he and the entity are intimately involved."
I don't want to pry about that, but I'll ask.
And then she gets in, and you seal her up, and then I guess Needles would have the code, so Needles, I imagine you transmit the code over to him?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to say that there are any penalties or consequences for this, but I'd like you to go ahead and give me a 3-dice fortune roll, Needles,
Okay.
for how good
All ones.
how good this code is. Okay, so 5. Okay. Yeah, you put in the code. It seals back up, and there's it's like kind of locking mechanism. You know that these units are pretty self-contained. So if it has enough power, then it'll probably last for another maybe 1,800 years or something like that. The ship, however, probably won't last that long. But, I mean, it's up to you what you guys want to do. It's definitely locked away where it is, and there's a code on it, so it would take someone pretty good to crack it. But for your part, the job is done.
All right.
Hooray.
Of course, there are people who believe that the job isn't done until you guys get paid, so I
Those are
imagine,
some good people. All right.
yeah, right, I imagine you get back to the ship, take off your suit and everything. You're feeling like you need to lie down again. You're just wiped of energy. That took a lot out of you.
Mhm.
Um,
I'll go into the med bay just because I figure I might as well in case she needs to operate while I'm out. Go into the med bay and I tell Audra, I'm gonna pass out. Wake me up when we have the money, or if we get double crossed.
Okay, Captain.
Thank you.
all right. So Needles, you and Rusty are left on the ship awake. You're the only ones there now. And Rusty is just kind of going through some of the motions. The computer seems to be helping translate a lot of it, but you're surprised to note that he's able to disengage the docking boon and retract it back into the ship. And he brings up like a camera showing what's going on. Probably takes a look at you while this is happening, and then looks back to the console. I mean, you could try and use the Ashtari cloud is in the sector, and most of it is in this system. So, with faster than light travel, you could contact anyone in the system if you wanted to try and contact them.
Yeah, I'd like to contact them.
Okay. It takes a little while for the connection to set up, but you eventually get an audio transmission, audio only, no video. And you hear from the other side of the line. It is finished then?
Yes.
You hear some weird, like, particly sounds, almost like really big sand being dropped. Like really big sand particles being dropped onto more sand. And then the voice says, "The amount has been transferred. Good business
Thank you very
working with you."
much. You too.
And the transmission cuts. You guys, for completing the job, even though it took a little bit out of you all, you guys get 8 cred for that job, as it's deposited into the account of the ship.
Sweet. We did it.
You did it.
Successfully completed a job.
You successfully completed a job after 3 friggin' episodes.
Yeah.
A lot of really bad rolls.
Sorry, I've been muted. Give Cronson 2 cred. There's 3 extra in the ship now, and Needles you get 2.
Okay.
I took 1, so that's the 8.
All right. Are you going?
Actually,
Are you going to give Marcus his share and boot him off?
yeah, why not?
Okay. In that case, he takes it on his cred stick, which basically looks like a wide toothbrush, and he looks at. He probably looks at Needles, maybe Gizmo, and he just like scoffs and docks off the ship onto the Maelstrom, we'll say, onto the cove. All right, so we'll go ahead and close out here. Congratulations on your job.
Thank you.
Yep. So let me go ahead and get through XP here. So starting with Audra, Needles, Clarity. You got all your desperate rolls, I imagine. So did you address a tough challenge with insight or compassion, Audra?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did you express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background?
Not significantly, I don't think.
Okay. Did you struggle with issues from your vice or traumas during the session?
I did not.
Okay, well then, in that case, no XP.
Yep.
Moving on, Bon. Did you address a tough challenge with force or threats? You might be muted.
Apologies. let's see. I don't know if I address a thing with force or threats. I don't think so. I didn't really roll that much today. It was kind of just had a scramble, had a fortune, and that was basically it.
Okay. Did you express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background?
Uh, I think background probably with having a bit more coming from a bit more of a rural background probably helped with the translation and all that. I was able to sort of get a bit more of a feel for this guy's time period, or not so much, but at least I could communicate with the guy.
True. What do the rest of you think? Gizmo, Needles, what do you guys think?
I think that's fair.
Gizmo?
I was muted. I think that was fair.
Okay. Alright, 1 XP for that. Which gives you that playbook advancement.
Yep.
So what are you going to take?
I've got a lot to choose from, so I'm thinking Wrecking Crew might be good, Flesh Wound might be good, and Scary might be good. Wrecking Crew helps me punch better, Flesh Wound helps me heal better, and Scary helps me intimidate better.
Well, you have 2 level 2 wounds. You have 1 level 1 wound, which will go away with downtime regardless. So the only 2 things you would have to heal are the scrambled and heal the burn. So your arm and the shots you received. But considering how injured you were before, could be useful. Personally, you know, my character in the Thursday game always says, you know, terror is a tool, use it. So I'm all about being scary. Think about it. We can come back to it.
Yeah.
So, last but not least, did you struggle with issues from your vice or traumas during this session?
I don't think so. At least not right now. We haven't gotten into downtime yet, so that doesn't really help much, and I wasn't... I mean, I could have ripped Marcus's head off. That wouldn't have accomplished much, so...
Okay. Alright, well then, in that case, that's you done. If you figure it out before we end the stream here, just let me know. Gizmo. Did you address a tough challenge with technical skill or ingenuity?
I mean, I think so.
I think so too, yeah. I think there are a couple of times where that happened, so I'm going to go ahead and give you a 2 on that. Did you express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background?
I think heritage a little bit, just by existing there for a second. Almost phasing out of existence.
I think that was more so placed upon you. I'm not sure that you really expressed those yourself. I don't think I want to give you that. Not because it was just a consequence, but it's because it was more so something that kind of came from me. And I know we're just kind of discovering like your origins and stuff, but we'll piece it together as we figure it out. So last one, you struggled with issues from your vice or traumas during the session.
Yes.
How so?
I was very reckless. Like I said, using my own power to get the cocoon over. That hurt my hand.
Okay, I'll give you 1 for that. And then Rusty, let's let me take a look at these. You addressed a tough challenge with speed or flair. I don't quite think so. You expressed your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. You definitely did that. I'll give you. I'll give you at least one for that. I'll think about it here for a sec. You struggled with issues from your vice or traumas during the session. No. I think just the one from expressing your heritage, background, that sort of thing. So you can take one for that, just in case. Rusty. 1 XP for beliefs, heritage, drive, energy. And then the Fire Drake. So, you guys definitely did execute a successful job that opposes hegemonic dominance. So definitely get one for that. Contend with challenges above your current station. I don't think so. Bolster your crew's reputation or develop a new one. So yours was ambition. Do you guys think that this was ambitious?
It seemed pretty ambitious to me.
Yeah, in a sense, I would say.
The overall job.
Yeah, especially. I mean, admittedly, the flame ain't gonna be too much of a problem anymore, but I think they're quite a bit of our station, and stealing from them and putting their cargo in a hostile factions base, basically planting evidence in a way, might be a bit ambitious. Right? There was some good RP, but I will say a lot of the session was just kind of set up for some of the future stuff. By the way, I did decide to take Flesh Wound because A, healing after mission seems like a really good idea, and B, pushing yourself to ignore penalties, taking less stress is always good. Mm-hmm. Aye, aye. Right, so my name's Thunder, as I said at the beginning of this, and has been mentioned many times by people saying my name. And I have a Twitter that is at DMThunder64, where I tweet about basically just when we go live with our Tuesday D&D games. We are currently in the middle of not a one-shot, but a little side project out in the Desden Wastes as people are attempting to uncover the secrets of this ancient temple that has recently been uncovered, but may be hiding a bit more than they bargained for. We can see the results of that tomorrow, in fact. So, if you're interested in coming, come on down. I'll be tweeting it out tomorrow at about 5 p.m. Pacific and a bit before that, so you have time to prepare. So, yeah. Hopefully see you there. If not, still, maybe you can follow just because I'm a nice guy. I'm not a nice guy. Follow because I'm not a nice guy. Alright, that's me.
Alright. Audra Needles Clarity, the doc. Go ahead.
I'm Erin. You can follow me on Twitter at Codabuck. And you can follow my dogs on Instagram at Shiba on Fleek. Those are the only important things that you need to know about me.
Alright. Let me fix this. Is it Sheba or Shebas?
Shiba, no S.
Okay, Sheba on Fleek.
Because I used to only have one, but now I have 3.
Indeed, indeed. They're very cute. You should go check it out.
Thank you.
Alright. And then Gizmo. What's going on, Cronson?
A lot. All the stuff. I have both a Twitter and Twitch, as well as a Facebook page for the Nerds Tavern. You can find me there. I will be posting throughout the week updates on our Saturday games, as well as slowly introducing. Right now, the ad campaign is slowly introducing the party.
Alright.
Special posts.
Very cool, very cool. Alright, well I think that's about it. Our other player, Ben, is having some audio issue troubles here, so what I'll do is I'll grab Rusty here and make him a bit bigger. There we go. And we'll put him right in the warp gate. And as soon as I get some more information from him, I'll throw it up here, and you guys will be able to see that next session. But we'll work through that, get that all sorted out. As for me, well, if you're watching this, this is one of the biggest things I do, and I love it every week. I love playing with you guys. I love all the crazy space nonsense that we get up to here. And I hope that we can continue to be as crazy as we are now. Aside from that, I am developing a brand new tabletop RPG system, narratively based, D6 based, independent of setting, called Synthesis. You can check that out and view its progress if you become a patron on my Patreon at patreon.com/synthesize. So that's patreon.com/synthethize. Words are hard, guys. Treacherous bastards. But moving on, aside from this and that, me and Cronson are in a game that happens every now and then on Thursdays, so keep peeled to our social medias. You can find me at UltraLazuli on Twitter. Keep peeled to that to see when that's happening. That is in the Open Legends system, and it's a lot of fun. Cronson can confirm on that.
Can confirm.
Yep, a lot of crazy stuff. Aside from that, make sure, of course, that you guys check out Evil Hat Productions to go pick up this game, Scum Villainy. It is built around the Blades in the Dark system. You can see the guy there. And is almost a carbon copy. There's a few things like the ship mechanics and stuff that are different. But for the most part, it's pretty relatable to Blades in the Dark. And if the system seems interesting or fun to you, just wait until your players hear about it and go through it. It is, of course, pretty low price here. Let me look. $35. Not too bad. This is the only thing you really need. You don't need like character sheets or anything else really. It has all of the character classes and playbooks, has all of the information that you need. So go and give Strauss and John some money. They deserve it for creating this wonderful game that we're playing. Other than that, I think that's about it. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Glad you started it off with us, and thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next week, most likely, with more Scum and Villainy and starting up our downtime activities and that sort of stuff. All right. See ya. Over now.